What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors sits down for what should be a routine morning show interview, only to find himself facing a host determined to tear him down on live television? The cameras were rolling, the lights were hot, and what started as a simple promotional chat was about to explode into the most uncomfortable television moment of the year. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because this story is about to get intense. Good morning, I'm George Stephanopoulos, and we're here with Harrison Ford, the host began, his tone already colder than usual for morning television. Harrison, thanks for joining us this morning. Happy to be here, George, Ford replied with genuine warmth. Always enjoy talking with you folks. Let's start with your new film. But first, I think our viewers are more interested in some comments you made recently about the current state of Hollywood and what you called the, quote, troubling direction of modern filmmaking. Ford's eyebrows raised. I'm not sure what specific comments you're referring to, George. Could you be more specific? Well, according to our research, you've been quite vocal about your dissatisfaction with younger actors and what you see as their lack of dedication to the craft. I think there might be some miscommunication here, Ford said carefully. I've actually been impressed by many of the young actors I've worked with recently. They bring fresh energy and perspectives that I find inspiring. Stephanopoulos pressed harder. That's interesting, because we have sources suggesting you've been difficult to work with on recent projects, showing up late, unprepared, and dismissive of directors' input. How do you respond to those allegations? Ford's jaw tightened slightly. George, I'm not sure where this is coming from. I've been in this business for over 40 years, and I've always prided myself on professionalism and respect for my colleagues. If someone has specific concerns about my behavior, I'd prefer they address them directly, rather than through anonymous sources on morning television. Let's talk about your personal life then, Stephanopoulos continued relentlessly. There have been questions about your marriage, speculation about tensions at home. Care to comment on rumors that you and your wife are living separately? The color drained from Ford's face. That's completely untrue and frankly inappropriate. My wife and I are very happy together, and I don't appreciate baseless speculation about our relationship being presented as news. But you have to admit, Harrison, that your reputation in Hollywood has changed over the years. You've gone from being seen as the everyman hero to someone many view as difficult, demanding, and out of touch with modern audiences. Ford leaned forward, his hands gripping the armrests. George, I came here to talk about a film that I'm proud of, with cast and crew members who did incredible work. Instead, you seem determined to turn this into some kind of character assassination based on unnamed sources and false premises. What exactly are you trying to accomplish here? I'm trying to give our viewers an honest conversation, Stephanopoulos replied defensively. You're a public figure who's been in the spotlight for decades. These are legitimate questions about your career and conduct. Legitimate questions based on what evidence? Ford shot back, his composure cracking. You've made several claims this morning without providing any sources, any context, or any opportunity for me to respond meaningfully. This isn't journalism, George. This feels more like a setup. Stephanopoulos wasn't backing down. Harrison, I understand you might be uncomfortable with these topics, but our viewers deserve to know about the real Harrison Ford, not just the carefully crafted public image. The real Harrison Ford? Ford's voice rose slightly. You mean the one who's been married to the same woman for over a decade? Who shows up to work every day prepared and ready to collaborate? Or are you talking about some fictional version you've constructed based on gossip and hearsay? Let's talk about your attitude toward the press then. Stephanopoulos pivoted smoothly. You've been increasingly hostile in interviews, short with reporters, and dismissive of publicity obligations. Some say you've developed an arrogance that wasn't there in your younger days. Ford stared at him for a long moment. George, are you actually listening to yourself right now? You've spent the last 5 minutes attacking my professionalism, my marriage, and my character, and now you're surprised that I'm not responding with enthusiasm? I'm not attacking anything, Harrison. I'm asking direct questions that our audience wants answered. No, you're not, Ford said firmly. You're making statements disguised as questions. There's a difference between journalism and whatever this is supposed to be. Stephanopoulos leaned back slightly. So, you're saying all these reports about your behavior are completely fabricated? What reports, George? You keep referring to sources and reports, but you haven't cited a single specific incident or named a single person. You're dealing in innuendo and asking me to defend myself against shadows. Well, let me be more specific then, Stephanopoulos said, consulting his notes. On the set of your last film, didn't you have a heated argument with the director that resulted in production being delayed for several days? Ford's eyes narrowed. Which film are you referring to? Which director? What was the nature of this supposed argument? You're being deliberately vague because you know that specifics would expose how thin these allegations really are. I think you know which incident I'm talking about, Harrison. No, George, I really don't. And I think that's the problem here. You're fishing for reactions to stories that may not even exist. Stephanopoulos shifted in his chair. Let's move on then. Your relationship with Disney and Lucasfilm has been strained, hasn't it? There are reports that you've been difficult during negotiations, demanding creative control that isn't typically given to actors. George, are you going to ask me about the actual film I came here to promote? Or are we going to continue this exercise in character assassination? I'm trying to understand the man behind the movies, Harrison. Our viewers are interested in more than just promotional sound bites. Then ask me real questions, Ford said, his voice steady but clearly frustrated. Ask me about my process as an actor, about working with this incredible cast, about what drew me back to this character. Don't ambush me with anonymous gossip and expect me to treat it seriously. Ambush is a strong word, don't you think? Ford looked directly into the camera, then back at Stephanopoulos. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels exactly like an ambush. I agreed to come on your show to talk about a project I care about, and instead, I'm being treated like a defendant in some kind of trial. Harrison, I think you're being oversensitive. These are standard interview questions. Standard? Ford's voice carried a note of disbelief. George, I've done hundreds of interviews over 4 decades. I know what standard questions look like. And this isn't it. You started this conversation by putting words in my mouth that I never said, continued with personal attacks on my marriage, and have now spent 10 minutes trying to get me to respond to accusations you can't even properly articulate. The tension in the studio was becoming palpable, with crew members exchanging uncomfortable glances as America's beloved action hero found himself under unprecedented attack during what should have been a routine promotional appearance. Stephanopoulos cleared his throat and consulted his notes again, clearly determined to push forward, despite Ford's obvious frustration. Harrison, let's talk about your reputation for being, shall we say, challenging during the filmmaking process. There are numerous accounts of you questioning directors' decisions, rewriting dialogue without permission, and generally being disruptive on set. Ford's expression hardened. George, I need you to stop right there. You keep saying there are accounts and reports and sources, but you haven't provided a single name, a single date, or a single verifiable incident. What you're doing isn't journalism, it's gossip masquerading as news. I'm giving you the opportunity to address these concerns, Harrison. Isn't that fair? Fair? Ford leaned forward, his voice dropping to that familiar gravelly tone. What would be fair is if you had actual evidence to support your accusations. What would be fair is if you had contacted me or my representatives beforehand to discuss these alleged incidents. What would be fair is if you were conducting an interview instead of a hit job. Stephanopoulos straightened in his chair. I think you're being defensive because there's truth to these reports. And I think you're being reckless because you don't have any reports worth defending, Ford shot back. Tell me something, George. Did you prepare these questions yourself? Or did someone else provide them for you? The question seemed to catch Stephanopoulos off guard. I don't understand what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. This doesn't feel like your usual interview style. Someone wants me discredited, and you're the delivery system. I'm wondering if you know who that someone is. Harrison, that's a serious accusation. Yes, it is, Ford said calmly. Just like every accusation you've made against me this morning. Except mine is based on what's actually happening right here, right now. Instead of anonymous sources and unnamed incidents, Stephanopoulos tried to regain control. Let's focus on your career then. You've been acting for over 40 years. Don't you think it's time to step aside and let younger actors take the lead roles? Ford actually laughed, a short, bitter sound. Are you serious right now? You're suggesting I should retire because I'm too old? I'm asking if you think there's a place for actors of your generation in today's Hollywood. George, I just finished filming a movie that audiences are incredibly excited about. The studio believes in it enough to spend millions promoting it. The director specifically wanted me for the role. But you're sitting here asking if I should just give up and go away. Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? I'm asking legitimate questions about the changing landscape of Hollywood. I'm asking legitimate questions. No, you're not, Ford said firmly. You're trying to make me sound like some bitter old man who doesn't know when to quit. It's insulting, it's ageist, and it's completely divorced from reality. Stephanopoulos pressed on. But surely you must acknowledge that your best days are behind you. Your recent films haven't had the cultural impact of your earlier work. Ford stared at him for a long moment. George, let me ask you something. How old are you? 2. I'm 62. And how long have you been in television? About 30 years. So by your logic, shouldn't you be stepping aside for younger hosts? Shouldn't someone be asking you if your best days in journalism are behind you? Stephanopoulos shifted uncomfortably. That's different. How is it different? You're suggesting that age automatically disqualifies people from doing work they love and excel at. Are you planning to retire soon? Or does this rule only apply to actors? Harrison, I think you're deflecting from the real issues here. The real issues? Ford's voice rose slightly. George, you haven't identified a single real issue this entire interview. You've thrown around vague accusations, attacked my personal life, questioned my professionalism, and now you're suggesting I'm too old to do my job. What exactly is the real issue you want to discuss? The issue is that you seem unable to handle criticism or uncomfortable questions. Ford laughed again, shaking his head. Criticism requires specifics, George. You can't criticize someone for unnamed behaviors on unspecified dates with unnamed witnesses. That's not criticism. That's slander. Those are strong words, Harrison. They're accurate words. And here's what I find interesting. You've been in this business long enough to know the difference between legitimate journalism and what you're doing right now. So either you've forgotten how to conduct a proper interview, or you're deliberately choosing not to. Stephanopoulos tried a different approach. Let's talk about your political views then. You've been outspoken about certain issues. Have I? Which issues specifically? You've been critical of various political figures and policies. Ford held up his hand. Stop. Just stop for a second, George. Listen to yourself. You just said I've been outspoken about certain issues, then couldn't name a single issue. You said I've been critical of various political figures, then couldn't name a single figure. Do you understand how this sounds to someone who's actually listening? I'm trying to give you room to explain your positions. I don't need room to explain positions I haven't taken. What I need is for you to ask me actual questions about actual things, instead of fishing for sound bites with loaded statements. You seem very angry, Harrison. I'm frustrated, George. There's a difference. I came here expecting a professional conversation about a project I care about, and instead I'm being subjected to an interrogation based on fabricated controversies. So you're saying there's no truth to any of these reports? Ford leaned back in his chair. What reports, George? You keep using that word, but you haven't presented a single report. You haven't quoted a single source. You haven't cited a single publication. You're asking me to deny things that you can't even properly articulate. I think our viewers can see for themselves how you respond to difficult questions. Difficult questions? Ford's voice carried a note of incredulity. George, a difficult question would be asking me about the challenges of returning to an iconic character after so many years. A difficult question would be about the physical demands of action sequences at my age. A difficult question would be about balancing artistic integrity with commercial expectations. What you've been doing isn't asking difficult questions. It's making unfounded accusations, and then acting surprised when I don't accept them. Stephanopoulos glanced at his notes again. Harrison, I have to ask about your relationship with your co-stars. There have been suggestions that you're difficult to work with, that you don't socialize with the cast and crew. Ford stared at him in disbelief. Are you actually suggesting that not socializing extensively with coworkers makes someone difficult to work with? I'm asking about your approach to collaboration. My approach to collaboration is to show up prepared, know my lines, hit my marks, and help make the best movie possible. If that's difficult, then I plead guilty. But I'm not required to be everyone's best friend, and suggesting that my personal social habits reflect poorly on my professionalism is absurd. But don't you think maintaining relationships is important in this industry? Absolutely. I've worked with some people multiple times over decades because we have mutual respect and trust. But that's different from whatever social standard you're trying to impose here. The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point, with Ford clearly at the end of his patience, and Stephanopoulos seemingly determined to continue his aggressive line of questioning, despite the obvious discomfort of everyone around them. Stephanopoulos seemed to sense he was losing control of the interview, but instead of backing down, he doubled down. Harrison, I think what our viewers are seeing here is exactly what industry insiders have been talking about. You're combative, you're defensive, and you're unwilling to engage with legitimate criticism. Ford's eyes flashed with genuine anger for the first time. Legitimate criticism? George, you want to see combative? Let me ask you something. Who told you to do this interview this way? I don't know what you mean. I think you know exactly what I mean. Someone fed you this angle, didn't they? Someone wanted you to come at me like this. The question is whether you're smart enough to realize you're being used. Stephanopoulos straightened defensively. Nobody tells me how to conduct my interviews, Harrison. Really? Then this is your idea of good journalism? Making unsubstantiated claims and then acting offended when your guest calls you out on them? I'm asking the questions that need to be asked. Ford laughed coldly. Need to be asked by whom? For what purpose? George, I've been watching you for years. You're better than this. You know how to ask real questions and get real answers. So what happened? Why are you throwing away your credibility to take cheap shots at me? My credibility isn't in question here, Harrison. Isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a man who's either lost his professional standards or sold them to someone else. Stephanopoulos' face reddened. That's completely inappropriate. What's inappropriate is ambushing a guest with false accusations and calling it journalism. Ford shot back. What's inappropriate is attacking someone's marriage and career based on gossip and hearsay. What's inappropriate is whatever this pathetic excuse for an interview is supposed to be. Harrison, I think you need to calm down. Ford stood up abruptly, his microphone cord pulling taut. Don't tell me to calm down, George. I came here as a professional courtesy, and you've spent the last 15 minutes trying to destroy my reputation on live television. Sit down, Harrison. We're not finished here. Oh yes, we are, Ford said, his voice deadly calm. I'm done with this charade. I'm done with your anonymous sources and your loaded questions and your pathetic attempt at gotcha journalism. Stephanopoulos looked panicked as he realized his guest was about to walk off. Harrison, if you leave now, it's just going to confirm what people are saying about you. Ford turned back to face him. And what exactly are people saying, George? Because so far, you haven't been able to tell me who these people are or what they're actually saying. You've been speaking in vague generalities and unnamed sources for the entire interview. They're saying you're difficult, unprofessional, and past your prime. Who is saying that, George? Give me one name, one specific person who's gone on record with those claims. Stephanopoulos hesitated. I can't reveal my sources. You can't reveal your sources because you don't have any, Ford said with finality. You've got nothing, and we both know it. That's not true. Then prove it. Right now. Give me one verifiable quote from one named source that supports anything you've said this morning. The silence stretched uncomfortably as Stephanopoulos shuffled through his notes, clearly unable to produce what Ford was demanding. That's what I thought, Ford said quietly. George, I don't know who convinced you to do this, but they played you for a fool. And you let them. Harrison, please sit back down. Let's start over. Ford was already removing his microphone. Start over? George, you just spent 15 minutes proving that you either can't or won't do your job professionally. Why would I give you another 15 minutes to embarrass yourself further? You're being unreasonable. I'm being reasonable for the first time this morning, Ford replied. The unreasonable thing would be sitting here and pretending this is acceptable behavior from a journalist of your supposed caliber. Stephanopoulos made one last desperate attempt. If you walk out now, people will think you have something to hide. Ford paused at the edge of the set and turned back one final time. George, the only thing I'm hiding is my disgust for what you've turned this show into. You used to be a real journalist. Now you're just another talking head willing to destroy people for ratings. That's completely unfair. Unfair? Ford's voice rose. You want to talk about unfair? Unfair is ambushing someone who came here in good faith. Unfair is making accusations you can't support. Unfair is attacking someone's family and career based on nothing but malicious gossip. I was doing my job. No, George. You were doing someone else's job. You were their weapon, and you didn't even realize it. That's what makes this so pathetic. Stephanopoulos' voice cracked slightly. Harrison, I think you're overreacting. Ford stopped and stared at him for a long moment. Am I? Let me ask you something, George. How would you feel if someone treated your family the way you've treated mine this morning? How would you feel if someone made professional accusations against you that they couldn't substantiate? That's different. No, it's not different at all. It's exactly the same. You just think the rules don't apply to you, because you're the one asking the questions, instead of answering them. Harrison, please. Ford shook his head. You know what the really sad part is, George? I actually used to respect you. I thought you had integrity. I thought you cared about the truth. But this morning you've shown me that you're willing to throw all of that away for what? A sensational interview? A few viral clips? It's pathetic. You're making a mistake walking out. Ford headed toward the exit. The only mistake I made was agreeing to come on this show. I won't make that mistake again. Harrison, wait. Ford turned back one last time, his face a mask of controlled fury. George, let me give you some free advice. Figure out who's really pulling your strings here, because they just cost you whatever credibility you had left. And when this blows up in your face, remember that you had a choice. You could have been a professional, but you chose to be a hack. With that, Harrison Ford walked off the Good Morning America set, leaving George Stephanopoulos sitting alone under the hot studio lights, his notes scattered, and his reputation in tatters. The cameras continued rolling as producers scrambled to figure out how to salvage the remaining time, but the damage was done. America had just witnessed one of its most beloved actors systematically dismantle a journalist who had forgotten the difference between asking tough questions and launching personal attacks. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Did Harrison Ford handle the situation correctly, or should he have stayed and continued fighting? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.